We are going to start lying on your backs for a minute. Bring a strap with you and probably a few, or maybe bring a cushion behind your head, just so that we're making sure the neck is supported throughout tonight. So just walking the feet quite wide. Letting the body be soft. Inviting every part of the body, every joint, to relax the tension it's holding on to. Just bring your left hand or your right hand, whichever feels more instinctive, to rest on the belly. And encourage a certain softness here, too. Start to notice the way the body feels, the way the body empties. Yesterday morning, I led a meditation around a quote that I think at the moment is more pertinent than perhaps it's ever been, in a way that took me a few years to understand. And the quote states that holding on to anger, or perhaps fear, judgment, resentment, sadness, expectations unmet, it's like drinking poison and expecting the person or the thing that you're upset with to die from it. This evening we're going to do quite a lot of forward folds and a few openers to counterbalance. So our first forward fold is perhaps a kind of counterintuitive one. We're going to stay lying on our back. And I'd like you to take hold of your strap. Make a really long loop with the strap by feeding it through one side and pulling it down the other. And then bending whichever leg feels more intuitive for you to start with. You can bend both legs up to begin with if it feels better. And bringing the foot into the strap. And then I'd like you to bring the strap behind the head. And so you might find that the strap means that actually your head lifts quite high off the ground. This isn't the best strap. In which case, I want you to bring cushions underneath the head so that you're not hovering, you know, bring another cushion behind the head. The head comes to rest. And if you've got your right leg up, you might like to bend the left leg to keep the pelvis in line. Try and keep the eyes closed. Whilst this is a yin stretch, I'd like you to mindfully just adjust the top foot a little bit so the toes pull down towards the face, just so the strap adjusts. So that we're more of a dorsiflex position. The first time I heard that quote was when my philosophy teacher, Sudhir, in Sweden, led a 5-day total silent retreat. No phone, no laptop, no books, no watch, no headphones. You were allowed pen and paper. There was nowhere to go, nothing to distract. And the mind for all of us began to slowly start to run away. For some, it became engulfing. These stories we tell ourselves, these feelings we hold on to. And when he said it, it was as though for the first time we were being given permission to just leave things behind. In the Western world, we're quite frequently told that we ought to work through things. Constantly pick things apart, process, have counsel. And yet Sudhir's approach was simply that sometimes, if it's not serving us to hold through it, and there's no real end in sight, then all we're actually doing is hurting ourselves. Notice any sensations starting to occur in the back of the leg. It might appear in the form of gentle shaking, perhaps not so gentle. One of my teachers, Angela, said that yin rumbles our surface, and meditation is what calms the mind. And I think it's quite true anatomically and mentally too. Yin and all of these things that we hold in the body, holding in our fascial net, causes us sometimes to truly shake. It might be mental, it might be physical. Sometimes there isn't a deeper meaning that the body is shaking to release. Sometimes it's just that we've been doing a large amount of exercise and the body is holding tension in a different way. But taking 3 deep, slow breath cycles. And when you have finished your third, gently start to bend the knee. Release the leg. And when you feel ready, swapping sides. Again, making sure that the strap encourages dorsiflexion of the heel and the ankle. Making sure the head is supported. Maybe you need extra cushions on this side, maybe you need less. Coming back to that quote. When Sudhir first told me, and perhaps it was my Western reaction, my Western response, I was kind of cross. I was kind of cross that this man who teaches Eastern philosophy, this man who had been pivotal in my life changing, was now kind of telling me that the reason I was still suffering was actually all my fault. And all I had to do was leave it behind and wander away. And I thought it didn't make much sense. As humans, we're encouraged to set firm boundaries and stand by ourselves. And surely simply offering forgiveness left, right, and center left no room for boundaries. Surely it was slightly disrespectful to simply let that trauma, that unjust thing that had happened, simply go. And he told me one day I'd understand. And when I did, I was to write to him and tell him. Which made me even more infuriated, because Sudhir is supposed to have the answer to everything. Well, I'll be honest, it kind of took me about a year to fully grasp what he meant. And it was actually when someone gave me Yet another quote. That people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But they'll never forget the way you made them feel. And I realized that it wasn't so much about forgiving the action, forgiving the words. It was about accepting how it had made me feel and choosing that I wasn't going to continue to feel that way. Choosing that it was okay to make a different choice about how I would remember. How I would allow situations to make me feel. Pulling the toes a little bit further towards you if you can. Notice the leg, notice the knee is starting to bend. We're beginning with the superficial back line. Urinary bladder line that runs from the forehead between the eyebrows. Traces its way along the back of the body, all the way up the back of the leg, the underbelly of the foot. To the base of the nail bed of the toes, where it comes to finish. Take 3 more breaths here. Your third exhale, slowly bend the knee. Release the strap. If you've had additional cushions, perhaps bring yourself back down to that one. Find your way into any position that serves you for a moment to reset. Very gently rolling onto one side, pushing yourself up. We're going to come to sit on our toes. So I think the longest Angela, my teacher, ever made me hold this was for 6 minutes, and we did it in 3 increments of 2 minutes, and I genuinely believe my toes were broken. We're going to strive for 2 minutes. If simply sitting here feels intense, you are very welcome to bring a cushion between the feet or to bring a cushion on top. You are welcome to make it 2 cushions and release one as you ease off of it. And so you come to sit on your cushion instead of on your heels. So you drive less force down. We are going to be here for 2 minutes. Make it so you can bear it. When you've found your position, bring the hands palm space down or palm space up to rest on the thighs. And if you can, I encourage you to close down the eyes. This posture for me is a bit like having a cold shower. I don't like it, not one bit. But it also helps me notice the way that meditation has started to creep into aspects of my life. Because it forces us to sit with acceptance. It forces us to remember that we can always breathe. That right now it's simply uncomfortable. We're not breaking. In a cold shower, we're not truly freezing to death. It's just uncomfortable. In a way, what a gift to be able to choose to be uncomfortable. To be able to practice being uncomfortable so that we can start to practice finding acceptance. Not always forgiveness. Not all things can be forgiven. Sudhir told me that too. But we can learn to find acceptance for ourselves. If you're sat on a stack of cushions, maybe see if for the last minute you could take one away. Maybe you can't, it's okay. Maybe you don't have a cushion. Try and keep the breath low and slow. Notice where the mind has wandered away to, perhaps the story that it's beginning to tell itself about what you're feeling in your feet. And just draw yourself back to the breath, to the present moment. It's uncomfortable. Taking 3 deep, full breath cycles. Slowly, your own time. Oh, bring the hands down. That is one pose I will always do with you because I feel bad making you do it and then not doing it with you. Unpeel the toes, come on top of the feet. And just gently pat the top of the feet down into the mat. Okay, next pose, we're going to find our way into a child's pose. There are lots of different ways of coming into this. Some people do like to keep the knees wide, sink the hips back, and then all they do is they just bring a support underneath the head and they rest the forehead here, and that's quite comfortable. For others, and if you know that you're a bit of a bendy Wendy, I would always suggest actually bringing a cushion, or if you've got it, a bolster underneath the hips. Bolsters are better, or a couple of cushions, just to actually stop you from sinking as deep. So we're still supporting the hips so that in yin we're not overextending, but we're still getting the benefits of allowing the nervous system to rest. So if you are, one of these that you know if you're bendy or not, if you're overly bendy, I would always suggest propping in yin, more excessively than perhaps others might. But you choose. You choose what serves you. The other option is obviously to always just bring a cushion in front underneath the belly. Maybe this is where you want to be. You choose. But setting yourself up and finding your way into a child's pose that fits you. If you're not comfortable with just the forehead down, you're very welcome to turn the head to one side, and I will tell you when it's time to turn the head the other way. So far, we've started to work into the lower body, stretching the source of that line, the base of the feet, the back of the legs. Now just continuing to find that sense of stretch, even if you don't feel it. That quote becomes pertinent, not just for the past, in forgiving or choosing not to forgive and simply to accept the past, the things we hold on to, the things that we identify with that create our story of who we are and how we came to be. But also in the present. And there's a fine line between accepting who we are at our worst and not choosing to expand ourselves at our best. If you've had your head to one side, gently turn it the other way just to make sure you stay neutral in your neck. It's always interesting to me the things that we can accept so easily and the things that we can't. The things that we allow to rattle us and ruin our present. So I'd like you in this last minute in this posture to think of a situation, a person, something that has made you hold on to an emotion that you know, sadly, doesn't serve you. Three more deep breaths. In your own time, slowly start to lift the body up. Move the pillows in front of you. Just out to the side for a moment and just come down to lie on the belly. Maybe giving the hips a bit of a wiggle from side to side. Good, and then we're going to find our way into Sphinx. So as always, plenty of options. Option one is to simply find your way, elbows underneath shoulders, and maybe you've got a block or a book or a cushion you can stand on the side to support the head, and you want to stay here. Maybe you want to have a bit more support underneath the chest, in which case you're welcome to bring a cushion or a bolster under the chest, behind the arms. And again, you're always welcome to then continue to support the head. But trying whichever variation you take to soften, to close down the eyes. As we start to counterbalance what we've done. As we start to work with the superficial front line.
This posture, both physically and philosophically, works with the kidneys at the back of the body. As we apply a gentle amount of pressure into that area. The kidneys, we all know, are responsible for flushing toxins through the body. From a mental state, as we start to think of that person or that situation, we can perhaps allow the kidneys to start to process that too, ready for release out of the body. It definitely doesn't mean we shouldn't allow ourselves to feel. To my mind, quite the opposite. I think when we store things up and tell ourselves we're not allowed to feel X, Y, and Z, we make things worse because we bottle them down into places that cause shame. We allow ourselves to feel, knowing that there's a time limit to that it's not forever, because we will choose to put ourselves first and practice acceptance. So perhaps take a moment to think about how it would feel to just accept that situation, that person, that event, to let go of anything else. Imagine the kidneys starting to work on processing and preparing to let go of those toxic feelings. Taking a deep breath in as you exhale, start to move any props of support away. And push yourself up into a tabletop position. Perhaps choosing to take a cat-cow, perhaps swinging the hips from side to side. Taking any movement that feels good for you. Good. And then slowly find your way to a seated position. And send the legs wide. So if you're a bendy Wendy and your legs have come wider than 90 degrees because that feels natural for you, draw them back in for me to find a 90-degree shape. We're going to be folding forward, which for most is quite an uncomfortable position to be in. So if you know that the pelvis, as you start to tip forward, rounds and actually we end up putting a load of strain through the low back, by all means sit on a cushion to help adjust that. By all means bring cushions in front of you so that you can hold on to them, kind of slouch forward over. Oh, Alex, that looks like a wizard cushion. One of those. We all have examples, things from the past, people, events. And as Sadia said, not everybody in our past is deserving of forgiveness. But we are deserving of our acceptance. And I think it's true of trying to practice acceptance in the current climate too. We couldn't have written this into our future history if we had tried in our worst nightmares. Most of us, through action, can't truly change what's happening, what will happen. But we can realize that whilst it's not giving up, in order to be able to do our bit, to keep our mental health strong enough to keep pushing forward, to keep dreaming bigger, we have to practice some level of acceptance. We have to constantly remind ourselves that worrying about our expectations, how the now will affect our future, doesn't change what might be coming down the tracks. All it does is ruin our present moment. our ability right here and right now to make change. Very slowly start to take a few deep breaths. Draw yourselves up. Gently bring the legs together. And we're going to find our way onto our backs. And you can choose how you would like to finish. You can choose to come into a reclined Baddha Konasana, the feet together and the knees apart. You can choose to straighten the legs down and bring a support or a block or a cushion underneath the low back and straighten the legs down so we find the length. Entirely up to you. Just opening the front body in a way that fits you, your practice, your body, your mind right now. Bringing the hands to rest wherever feels comfortable for you. As we start to change the way we perceive things and think about things, we start to need more space. Start to create space within us. As we begin to let go. By freeing our mind now, worry about the future.
be a bit more present. Create more space for the now. So just using these last few moments to think of the situation occurring now. Where you can start to practice acceptance. Not because you don't want to change it, because you need to free yourself to be more present. So if you straighten the legs down, start to bend the knees. If you open the knees wide, start to bring them together. If you have a prop underneath you, gently remove it. Neutralizing yourself in any way that you'd like. And then getting yourself ready for Shavasana. Maybe you want to bring a pillow behind the head or underneath the knees to help support you. If you want to bring pillows on top of you to help ground you back down. Letting the breath find its way back into the body.
Sometimes the movement of the fingers and of the toes. Keeping the eyes closed, reaching the arms up overhead, behind you, stretching yourself out. And when you're ready, starting to bend the knees. Roll yourself onto your left or onto your right side. Curling yourself up and just pausing there for a moment. Very slowly start to straighten the top leg. Push down with the top hand. Find your way to a seated position on your mat. Bring the hands to rest on the knees. Take a really deep, full breath in. Really expand the belly. Lift the chest and lift the collarbones. Open the mouth and exhale it out. Inhale, fill the belly. Lift the chest and the collarbones. Exhale it out. Last time. Inhale, fill the belly. The chest, the collarbones, the back of the shoulders, lift all the way up. Open the mouth, sigh it all back out and down. Come to sit with your breath as it moves through you. Gently bring the hands out in front. Gently slide them together. We don't need too much heat tonight. Bring the fingers over the eyes. When you feel ready, blink the eyes open behind the hands. Spread the fingers to that light back in slowly. And then when you're finished, draw the hands down in front of you. Namaste.